I'm in my home and I want to be in my home for the next whatever years, 20 years, 30 years. Only 8% of homes are actually set up for aging in place. So
Yes.
that's a massive opportunity for people to think about that. That means that we're not, the things you normally think of, ramps or like grab bars, whatever. Sure, those are important. But what would be so much more helpful is let me do a virtual tour of a kitchen and show me all the things in the kitchen that I should consider. Now, I might not want them all today, but I should be thinking about maybe, on my faucet, the ability for it to make sure I don't have scalding water.
Well, Sally, good morning. And it's very nice to see you again. And I have been looking forward to getting to talk to you for this specific conversations on retail, because every time I've talked to you in the past, it has been just a very energizing conversation. So I'm sure today will be the same. Just as a brief introduction, Sally and I first met, I think early last year or mid last year, when we both attended a conference hosted by Mary Furlong. And I had seen Sally on the list of attendees and saw she was from the Chicagoland area, as am I. And I love the name of her company, Slang Consulting. And Sally's background is really well suited toward what we're talking about today. And coming in and understanding that intersection of retail and category creation, what she has done is a lot with tech and retail. And she's leveraged that experience to found Slang Consulting, which is a strategy firm guiding clients to market growth through innovation. Sally, why don't I turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing with retail and category creation and all that good stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Dana. Yeah. My background really comes from categories that were complicated to sell in retail and helping both the retailers and the brands successfully reach consumers by making sure we had the products and services and all of the ancillary support around them. So started out really in wireless, which was at the time a very complicated category to sell. That's why there's thousands and thousands still of dedicated retail stores around the country. And it was really complicated for national retail to engage in wireless because of all the challenges of they're selling complicated products that often need financing, that need services attached to them, that might have extended warranty plans. And, just the tech itself was complicated. How do I transfer? I don't want to lose anything. So, I found that helping the retailers develop that category themselves really lends to all of these new categories that I'm excited about entering the market right now. Things in the spaces of health tech, well tech, age tech, which I know you're very interested in sleep tech, other categories that just haven't traditionally been in the retail space, that there's wide open opportunity for both retailers and brands to take advantage of. And I would say, I think the consumer really is seeking more than just SKUs on a web page and much more support around these types of products.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And it makes all the sense in the world. Is you just talked about those four categories of health tech, well tech, age tech, sleep tech. All of those are categories that are new to people. People, if we think about health tech and we think about maybe wearables, an Apple Watch, for example, right, that's more familiar to people. But there is so much out there that people really don't know that much about. And so the ability to talk to somebody, the ability to actually see it, I'm thinking about a continuous glucose monitor, for example, with WellTech, and being able to see what size it is and really envision what that would be like if you're wearing it, if it's on your arm.
The questions that come with that: why do I need it? How do I use it? What is it telling me? What do I do if I don't understand later? How do I get that support? I'm very active in the Consumer Technology Association, which is the producer of CES, the largest tech event in the world. And every year, it's really good to look at the trends that are coming into CES because it informs what's going to be coming in the next 3 or 4 years ahead of time. Only a couple of years ago did health tech get its own category at CES, which sounds crazy to me. But when I think about it, it's only been 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And largely because this has become a huge area of innovation and growth. There's absolute demand from the consumer, but the challenge becomes that there's so many products that'll never see the light of day
Mhm.
because of all of these, complications. I'll use as an example, like the hearing space. So, this is to me, it's a universal need. Everybody knows they need to get their teeth checked, to get their eyes checked, but hearing isn't really in our wellness or physical medical experience today. Most
Mhm.
people get their hearing checked at the age of 6 and then may never have it checked again. And yet it's, core to our well-being, and not just because you need to hear to communicate, to remove things like social isolation, but it actually is proven to cause other problems like early onset dementia can be greatly impacted by somebody's inability to hear and communicate. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of really important reasons why we should be thinking about our hearing health. So because of that, you start to see all of this innovation in this space, all these products that have been coming out. Just a couple of years ago, the FDA approved over-the-counter hearing aids, which allowed for the mass market, right? Before it was really only prescribed by an audiologist, quite expensive, $5,000 to $8,000, and only for people with extremely bad hearing. Anything from mild to moderate, there was no product available because it was prescription. So the FDA approved over the counter, which was really wonderful. So now you open up a marketplace that mass retail and direct to consumer is really set for.
Mhm.
But the challenge has been that it's not easy to understand. I don't know that I need them. I don't know what to buy. I don't know which ones work for me. I don't know what to do if it's not working right away. I'm not necessarily understanding that it takes a while to actually acclimate yourself to the products. And there's just a whole amount of new brands that have entered the market as well. So it's confusing. Do I need $100 one? Do I need a $1,500 one? Right?
Mm.
All of those things make it so that the consumer doesn't adopt because they
Mhm.
think there's just too much information. I don't understand. I don't know who to talk to. And instead of it becoming this mass new category for retailers, what happened was many of them took it in and saw really high return rates because consumers were confused. And so they've leaned away. And
Mm.
that's where I go, this is such a universal category that we could really, build up. We could be thinking not just about people with hearing loss, but hearing protection. Think about kids are wearing headphones pretty much all the time. That's impacting their hearing at a very young age. So all of the education and the testing and then the products that are available, that's a universal need. And that's where I feel like retail to really lean in.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of hearing aids and new categories of, ways of incorporating them, I took my dad out to look at the Nuance glasses. And just, I know you know what those are, but those are the glasses that have the speakers built into the earpiece of the glasses. So there's no discomfort with having something extra in your ear. There's not the stigma of having something that's kind of unattractive right there in your ear. But it helps to isolate out the background noise and really focus in on the person that you're looking at and talking to. So you can have a conversation in a more crowded space, let's say a restaurant, for example. Um, and it made all the difference in the world, being able to go into the store and try them on and talk to the person. And I was really curious to know what else she was hearing from other people. And just for me personally, that was a really interesting conversation. Um, but I would have never gotten him to just order them online. Not that he is adverse to online shopping at all, but I was really nudging him toward that. And so, just a quick, hey, we're going to be in that area anyway. Why don't we just stop in and just see what they look like? That was super easy as opposed to actually going online and purchasing them. That's a very different barrier.
I 100% agree. And I think it doesn't make sense because it's a new product. It's a new category. They've just won a series of Innovation of the Year products. They're in Time Magazine. They've really, captured an opportunity to help people think about it without feeling like you said, the stigma of having to put something in their ear or over their ear. But what their benefit is they're also owned by EssilorLuxottica, which happens to own tens of thousands of retail stores. So they have the ability to put them in their existing store location, train their people who understand how to sell eyewear and explain what this is and make it so that the end-to-end experience is really seamless. You can have a conversation with the salesperson. They know what they're talking about. Much harder, I think, in a mass retail environment where you just aren't going to have access to training people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. They are, I will say, they're in Walmart. Are they in Target?
No stars. I don't know.
I'm not sure. But it is, I mean, just the idea that you could, I mean, Walmart is as mass merchandisey as you can get. And the idea that you could walk in and experiment with something like that really makes, it changes your perception of Walmart. You know, it makes it a destination that maybe it wouldn't have been otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and it's because it's a dedicated service area in their store. They don't have many of those, right? A lot of the products are just hanging on the shelf, but they do have it in wireless. They have it in tire. They have it in eyewear, right? There's certain categories in pharmacy where you have an actual conversation. And those are tend to be the more complex sales.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Let me look. I had prepared some questions for you. So let me see what I want to ask you. You know, I did want to just comment at the beginning that through all of our conversations, Sally, something that comes across continuously is your passion for that opportunity retailers really have to build around human needs to create different, you know, very distinctive destination-worthy shopping experiences. And that is a little bit of a holy grail for retailers. It's something that a lot of retailers really want to try and figure out. How do we break away from just being seen as the low price destination or a quick, you know, stop in? It helps to really differentiate them. So, you know, when we talk about retail transformation, and I'm not even thinking about the health tech, well tech, et cetera, that we just started talking about, but tech in general often comes up, whether it's a, you know, self-checkout or different types of inventory technology. Also maximizing the assortment, getting the assortment right, pricing strategies, and then rearranging the store layout. Those four things are often what just come up in conversation when we talk about retail transformation. But, you know, my whole career has been based on understanding human needs and figuring out how any entity, it might be a retailer, it might be a manufacturer, how can they, you know, really glean insights out of those human needs so they can uniquely better meet those needs. And that's what all of the retail transformation should really ladder back to. If you're putting in tech for tech's sake, there's no point in that unless you're really meeting something that your shoppers are wanting and needing. Yeah. And in previous conversations you and I have had, you know, you have said, and I 100% agree, that the retailer who is really able to break out from all the rest is going to be the one that is uniquely able to address needs better than their competition. So absolutely true. Now, if we just take a step back for a minute, we hear that phrase, human needs, a lot. And if I were to turn that into a question for you, what would you describe as human needs? You know, if we talk about the phrase, can you give an example?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think it's very circumstantial or situational, the need of the time. And it could be demographically based or it could be kind of situationally based. I think of, for example, COVID, right? Best Buy became famous for, and in fact, it greatly improved their stock price for their fast response to COVID and their ability to create solutions like buy online, pick up in store very rapidly, faster than almost anybody else was able to. It was kind of not a standard then, turning their actual stores into mini warehouses so that product could be available really quickly. And they got a lot of kudos for that because of their agility and their ability to support the need at the moment. I think of Apple. Their stores, they're very focused on the total experience, which is just an extension of their entire brand, right? The simplicity of using an iPhone or using an Apple product, the ability to immediately start using it, not have to be trained to use it. They want the store experience to feel that way. And then further, they want to create it as a destination. They've created Apple stores as an experience. You've never walked past an Apple store that it isn't crowded. You usually have to make a reservation if you want to, you know, have a specific technical conversation, but it's fun. It's discovery. It's, you know, you're seeing the cool new product. You're talking to really smart people who understand everything. And they're going to talk to you not as a tech person, but rather as just another human being having a conversation. So there's excitement. It's almost like you want to go to an Apple store, where oftentimes I don't want to go to the store, even though I love retail, right? Because it just feels like it's a requirement, not an event. And then another retail that I think really does a great job with this human needs concept, and really they're there where the customer needs to be, and have evolved really interestingly, is QVC. So QVC I love because they have a incredible relationship with their consumer. They know their consumer very well. They actually say their customer ages in. Most customers start around 50, 55, and their most valuable customer, their who buys much of their stuff, is 70. Right. So they understand this consumer very well, but they also don't talk down to the consumer. They have a relationship. They create stories. They explain products really well, but they also understand that their customer is multitasking while they're engaging with QVC. So they literally have 3 screens going at once. They'll have QVC on the TV. They'll be on their phone at the same time, and they might have a tablet where they're actually engaging with other QVC community members, saying things like, "Oh, has anyone tried that product that's on right now?" And so they're having kind of a community discussion, validating what they're seeing, but trusting that QVC has already curated the product, and then making the purchase on their phone. So, I mean, like, they understand how that environment works. I think that's an amazing discovery of how the consumer's engaging, and it completely changes how you think about how do we tell the story of products. They spend minimum 8 minutes, right? And oftentimes it could be, much more time on a product or a product line. How much time do you spend looking at a product on Amazon, for example? It's a very different experience. So they do a wonderful job of discovery and bringing new categories to life, because it's that whole element of, they're introducing me to it. I'm checking with my network, my community, as to whether or not this is something they have used or like. And, I like the story that I'm hearing, and they trust that they can buy it, return it, have support behind it once they get it.
That is such a fantastic example. And it's good to know, because not everyone knows QVC very well. And so just to think about the implication there, you've got 8 minutes to explain something. And I know from consumer research, when we're trying to go out and gauge the interest in a new product, we try to describe it as succinctly as possible, because we're always reminding clients, ultimately, this is going to be described in at most a 15-second ad. You're going to be lucky if you've got the budget for 15 seconds of an ad for this, or it might take somebody going online and reading about it there and watching a video on your site. But with QVC and all that interaction, it really is a unique opportunity. And with so much of the purchasing coming from people who are older, you mentioned 70 years old is, one of the most valuable shoppers for them. Do you know, I don't think they've got much age tech right now. Do they have some?
They sell curing. They sell other products that would be in this space.
Okay.
They sell a lot of food.
Okay.
Yeah. So they cross a lot of categories that you might not think about. And they're also, I love their embrace, because I think people may think of QVC as like, that's old school shopping television, right? Like that's just, but they very much are embracing the new ways. They're a top 5 TikTok shop. Okay. So they figured out how to sell on TikTok, which is not necessarily that exact community that they have today, but that is where discovery is happening now. It's happening on social, where people are seeing an influencer or somebody talk about a product that they haven't seen before, and it's leading them to either buy inside the app, or search more deeply. I think that, to me, that's the unlock right now, is how to get in front of people as they're entertaining themselves. A 30-second television commercial, I don't remember the last time I've watched television. In fact, I was with, this past weekend, I had a girls' weekend as my high school friends. We get together every year, and none of them had cable. None of them.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, okay, that's interesting. And, they were all talking about, yes, they might have, they have streaming services for sure, but they aren't using television at all in the way that we're used to it. So I think those ways that we used to bring brands to life or get people excited about something, they're not even on our radar oftentimes anymore.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about coming back to human needs, can you think of an example of a need that is emerging that might present an opportunity for retailers to differentiate themselves, something kind of more tangible.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this, and the term that came to me was, what's universal? What's a universal need that maybe isn't really showing up, or maybe it's showing up in an old way and not a new way. And I'm looking again at tech trends, what's happening at CES, et cetera. And I would say universal to me is things like health, things like we're getting old, we're living longer, but we're living sicker.
Oh, yeah.
And that's happening. Things like caregiving. I think, again, that group of women that I was with this past weekend, every single one of them was a caregiver, had the children on one side and parents or, older adults that they take care of on the other side. And it's an absolute day-to-day, challenge for many, many people, that I think that's a universal challenge.
Yes.
I think, I work with a company called Snooze, and Snooze is in the sleep tech space, which is actually relatively new technology for sleep, but universal. 100% of people sleep. Right. So and when you have a conversation with people about their sleep, it's universal, but unique is how I would put it, that everyone has sleep challenges. I mean, it's shocking to me. There's not many people who say, no, I sleep great. No problem. Almost everybody says I have something, but it's unique to them. It might be they have challenges falling asleep or staying asleep, or their partner snores, or, they might just never feel rested, or when they don't sleep well, they can see how it affects their days, going forward. And of course it affects your health, but it's not a category yet. And that's, to me, a really interesting opportunity for retail, because you do see things like trackers, you see watches, Samsung Watch, Apple Watch, you see the Oura Ring, you see things that will tell me how I'm sleeping, give me a sleep score. Or you see things like melatonin, or, other kind of, pharmaceutical type products that might be something to help you get tired or sleepy or stay asleep. Or you see things like mattresses, or, blankets, or great pillows, because they're not presented in a single way. If you would ask the National Sleep Foundation, they say that much of sleep challenges are impacted by your environment. And there's 4 things that you need in your environment, your sleep environment. One is sound. It has to be quiet. 2, it has to be dark. So light. 3, it has to be cool. That's actually, you need it to be cooler in the room. And then 4, it has to be comfortable. So to me, the unlock for retail is create sleep categories. Don't make me walk around the store having to figure this out on my own. Show me there's 4 areas that you need for your bedroom to get your optimal sleep. And here are curated products in these areas. Here's some, great sleep machines, sound related machines, natural, et cetera. Here's some options for either eye masks or blinds or whatever that might be to darken the room. Here's, products. Snooze has a product called Breeze, which is both a fan and a sound machine embedded together. So it kind of addresses 2 of those 4 areas really beautifully too. It's a beautiful product. And then, then the comfort, have the best sheets, have a good mattress, have a comforter that works for you. Those 4 things, the National Sleep Foundation, a very, a nonprofit organization, very focused on academic research, tells you those are ways to optimize your sleep. That's universal. And I feel like that's such a great way. But if you were to try to find all those products in a typical retail store, you would be walking to the electronics department, you'd go over to bedding, you'd have to pick up, over here in the hardware area. Like, that's not how someone's going to understand it.
And, going back to Snooze as that example, you describe it as a fan that also is a sound machine. So I can see it addressing the temperature. And then, I would want to see it, because you said it's beautiful. So I would want to see what it looks like. I want to see the size. I want to get a sense of, okay, when it's running, are there lights that are lighting up on it? What does the sound like? You want some of that in-person experience before you decide whether or not you really want this item.
That's right.
So,
that's right. And I think it just, as much as we all love and use Amazon, I'm sure many of us on a practically daily basis, we're not discovering product on Amazon, we're buying product on Amazon. That to me is
a good point.
Where this marketplace, this movement to a marketplace has been kind of one of the major retail trends, which I understand the reason for it. There's a lot of reasons why a retailer would want to build these marketplaces, which are essentially online stores similar to an Amazon, right? Where they can both offer their product that they want to inventory, but also a whole range of third-party vendors who can manage their stores or their SKUs on that site and offer this super long tail. Economically, it makes sense. The retailer is not having to carry the inventory, right? It's largely on the brand to market and sell the product. So economically, it's a win for the retailer. They don't have to worry about the brick and mortar, which is incredibly expensive. They don't have to have people. There's also a lot of data. Great. Everyone wants data, and that's certainly a way to get it. Is a lot of data collection through these marketplaces, and then they can add incremental monetization through things like advertising. Oh, you want to be at the front of this page of sleep tech? Great. You have to buy these search terms, and you need to do sponsored ads, and you need to do these other things. So it makes sense to me that the retailers are very excited about that. Again, there's a inclination to move away from brick and mortar because of it's just extremely expensive. And I think it's good for the retailer, but I'm not sure it's good for the consumer. And that's where I worry about, and to your point about the retailer differentiating. So how is your brand different than everybody else's if what you have is kind of the same thing? If everybody has all the same products and all the same things online, then there is not really that opportunity to bring these brands to life. And I think it challenges the supplier, whether or not they have a relationship with the retailer and they can actually drive their brand. I think the consumer, it puts a lot of onus on the consumer. And frankly, there's an algorithm underneath all of this that's showing me what they think I want.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's no algorithm in a retail aisle.
Yes.
And so I worry about us kind of losing track of that. I think what will happen is there's going to be a course correction. I think everybody's doing it. And I think we'll start to see, well, not everybody wants to buy that way or wants to buy every product that way. And I think we'll see more experiential stores. We'll see more thoughtfulness around, creating, like I could see another category being around anxiety.
Yes.
That is a universal challenge right now. Like there's a lot of people feeling that way, and they're trying to figure out what are the pieces and parts. Where do I pull from? Clearly, age tech is a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
You and I both know we're passionate about that. Like, why is that not a category in stores? And it could be multiple categories. It could be aging in place. So give me a whole curated home story about how to make my home safe for my ability to age in it for as long as possible. And that can be things like, as simple as products for my bathroom, handrails, things like that. It could be incremental lighting as you age, your eyesight starts to dim a little bit. So incremental lighting that gets installed in my hallway. It could be technology. It could be things like sensors or security or a product that I love. And I work with a company called iGuard. They have a product, very simple. The number one reason why a house fire happens is someone leaves something on the stove unattended. And oftentimes, as you get older, that can happen more frequently. What a terrifying thought. This product plugs into the stove. If someone walks away for 5 minutes, it automatically turns it off. Those types of products should be at retail. Those types of products should be like, hey, as you're thinking about, your parents or yourself, these are things that can help keep you safe in home as you change. And I really would love to see that kind of thinking. In fact, I'm advising a number of brands and retailers to start thinking about how to bring these categories together and make it a real story.
Absolutely. And something you and I have talked about before is so using the examples that you just talked about, mostly for older people, that is something where you've really got two customers, two shoppers. You've got the adult child who wants to help and maybe even it's a gift giving situation, where somebody doesn't need another pair of socks or another photo frame, but wow, if they could have iGuard, that would be something. It's kind of cool, but also super practical.
Sure.
Yeah. And there are a lot of kind of fun things in the age tech space that would make for a nice present or something that's just very thoughtful. Or you may want to buy it for yourself. So thinking about expanding the customer base too, that's a good way to go about it.
Right. I think I totally agree. Like we want things that have utility. We don't want just more junk. We probably are all thinking about that. And I also think I love the comment about there's two customers. In the caregiver, I had a brand in Walmart for 2 years that was there to just do testing around aging in place concepts and technology. And it was really just allowing us to have Walmart stores as a proving ground and understanding the consumer reaction and behavior. And the caregivers felt very strongly that these were products and services that their loved one needed now. And the older adult was like, those are really important products or services, maybe 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a disconnect just there. And then another misnomer we had and we learned while we were there was we thought we needed to be dirt cheap. Like that was going to be the driver of the sale. And in fact, what we learned from the consumer was if it's too inexpensive, I don't trust it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it's really going to do the things you're claiming it's going to do. Because it was a new brand, we literally created the brand to put it into Walmart stores. What we gained from was the Walmart halo that they said, well, even though I don't know this brand, I know Walmart, or I know Costco, or I know Target. And so they wouldn't do this if they didn't believe in the brand. And that's another, I guess, caution point I have about Marketplace is I don't feel that way about Marketplace. I don't feel like Amazon is testing every product or any marketplace. Let's not say Amazon because I love Amazon. But I don't think they're testing every single product that's being sold on their site. It would be impossible. There's millions and millions of products. So it's not really something that they spent energy on. Whereas, there's a whole line of employment around buyers and merchants, right? Which their job is to really pressure test all the products that are being brought to them to think about, is this what my consumer wants? Is this the price point they want it at? Or does this have benefits and features before they ever consider putting it on the shelf?
Yeah.
So I know that work has been done and I trust that retailer is going to stand behind whatever's under their roof.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a store like Costco, which I'll call out in particular because it has generated so much trust among Costco shoppers. And part of that is the return policy that has always been very flexible, but it's also just known for, if I'm buying something at Costco, somebody has really already vetted that and it's probably going to do what I think it's going to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of choice. Right. So there's not like 1,000 different options for potato chips. They have a limited amount of what they have. They brilliantly have made it so that you can only get that version from them. Right. So it's almost private labeled, but not really. Like the joke I always make is like, if you're going to buy toothbrushes at Costco, you can get like a 12 pack of toothbrushes. I don't know why you need a 12 pack, but you can only get it at Costco. And it's like, this is a deal and you get excited. And then there's discovery. Everyone talks about, I go to Costco because I was going to go pick up whatever, the chicken, and I walk out with an entire basket filled with stuff because they're spring the things.
Yeah.
That's brilliant across the board. That's why I think Costco has so much loyalty is because it's consistently doing that. Now, I can't use a certain credit card to go there and I can't buy every single thing that I want to buy for my brands because they don't carry all of them. So what Marketplace is supposed to be doing, right? What Marketplace is doing is the opposite of that. I have absolutely everything. Costco is unashamedly not, and yet you can't find a parking space in Costco.
It is true. It is true. Yeah. But you think about that event. You talked about the Apple store at the beginning of our conversation as going to that store is an experience, the Apple store. And if you can generate that within another brick and mortar retail, coming back to age tech, there has been a rumor going around. I don't know that it's at all true, but certain retailer was thinking of setting up age tech and it would be available for shoppers an hour before the store would normally open. And the way it was described is there would be various kiosks or booths set up for the age tech vendors to come in and just show people what they had. And so kind of connecting that to the QVC conversation of, wow, you could really get good information about what you're looking for. It could be, the Lotus ring that can help with, controlling your lights, or it could be iGuard, or it could be snooze. It could be a lot of different things that would help people address different universal needs, maybe at that 50 plus age mark.
I think that's a step in the right direction. I still feel like it feels fragmented to me. And I think that's one of the challenges, like with age tech, as you and I are both involved a lot. Most of the people, I would say I would say 100% of the people I've met in the age tech space have a personal story as to why I got involved. And it was because someone they loved had an issue, whatever it was. It was a mobility issue, or it was they had Parkinson's, or they were, suffering from dementia, whatever it was. And they went to find the product they were looking for and couldn't find it. And then they said, well, then if it's happening for me, it's happening for others. And it became a passion project, and they started to create it. And it's a really wonderful, emotional thing that's how the age tech community has kind of come about, is like, hey, I love this person and they're not getting what they need, and I want to help. That's really what it feels like. It's very mission driven. But it is, they tend to be very single point solutions, which isn't bad, but I think that makes it really hard for a consumer. If you're thinking about, again, I'm in my home and I want to be in my home for the next whatever years, 20 years, 30 years, only 8% of homes are actually set up for aging in place. So that's a massive opportunity for people to think about that. That means that we're not, the things you normally think of, ramps or like grab bars, whatever. Sure, those are important. But what would be so much more helpful is, let me do a virtual tour of a kitchen and show me all the things in the kitchen that I should consider. Now, I might not want them all today, but I should be thinking about maybe, on my faucet, the ability for it to make sure I don't have scalding water. That might be something I think about in the future, or a water sensor, so that if there is a leak, it doesn't go too long. Those, take me into another room and show me what I should be thinking about here. And I think then the curation and the story and the lifestyle makes so much more sense. And I think the basket will get a lot bigger, because they're like, oh, I hadn't even considered that, as opposed to, I'm walking along. Again, I love that someone's focusing on bringing age tech into the consumer world, but like, each one of those booths is going to have their independent story about their one thing or their couple of things that they're selling for that one need. Yeah. And I think we just have to look at it differently.
Yes, 100%. And this is something I'll mention right now. And then, in terms of a podcast, I can always follow up with the link to send you. But the Wall Street Journal had something just within the past couple of weeks. I don't know if you saw that, but it was, what do I need to think about, and what would it take to make my home where I can stay? And so what you just described, people have no idea where to begin. You're right. We think of grab bars. We think of toilet risers. We think of ramps. We know those kinds of things, but what are the things we're not thinking about? And I mean, we're really on the first wave of people going through trying to age in place. And like you said, when I heard that less than 10% of homes in the US are age friendly, meaning they've got all the requirements with the ability to live on a single level and wide doorways and et cetera. It's amazing.
Right.
It's because we've got far more than 8% of the population who needs it.
Sure. And some of that is heavy construction changes.
Yeah.
There are other things that might be able to accommodate that solution without a complete construction change, Yeah. And that's where I think people want to have visibility. I also think as much as we think we're going to plan for aging, most of the time, the reason you're actually starting to purchase these products is because something happened. There was an event that happened, and now the circumstance is different. Yeah. I might be thinking, well, I'm fine right now. Yes, I will future state do that. But, 2 years ago, I broke my leg, and, it was a severe break, and I wasn't allowed to put weight on it for 3 months. So suddenly I was, incapacitated. I couldn't go up the stairs. I really couldn't, I couldn't walk on my own. And it was a shock to the system to think about how my house was set up. How was I going to get to the bathroom? How was I going to get, up and around? And, to think about that wasn't a planned event. I certainly didn't expect to do it, but it really did kind of bring to light to me the need for things to not be as much planful. It's a construction project. We need also something that's out of the box. I can buy it today, and it's going to help me with the things that I need. So there's so many. I keep going back to this concept of universal. These are universal needs. They're not niche products or not niche solutions that are out there. They're things that really could be absolutely new categories and opportunities for revenue and growth at the retail and brand side. but also genuine consumer human needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we have the ability to meet those needs differently because of technology and, advancements in technology, figuring out what needs to address using technology is a big deal. Yeah.
Technology has to be incredibly simple. A company I work with that I absolutely love is a company called Raz Mobility, and they have the memory cell phone.
Yeah.
They created this phone specifically for people with cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's. And it is really, the user experience is so easy. It's just a picture of a person. It's somebody, your loved one. You just have to press it. And the things that we often get frustrated with our loved ones about, they accidentally turn the phone off, they forget to charge it, they turn the volume down. That actually is, the controls are completely disabled for the person who's using the phone, and the caregiver has access to all of that. So they can decide who they can get calls from. Can they call out or not? They can make it so they can never accidentally press the button to turn the volume down. They can send a message that says, charge your phone. And it's completely transformed the families that have found this phone. They found it because of a need. They went, oh my gosh, is there any phone out there for Alzheimer's? And this is the product that pops up. And then they created a community where the users give, primarily the caregivers, give feedback back to the company to say, have you ever thought about, like, my loved one still wants to text message. Could we enable that? So they enabled it. I want to be able to video call them. They didn't have that in the original product, but they enabled it. And it's completely changed these people's lives because they were so socially isolated because they weren't able to think about how to use their phone even more. Maybe they were using a phone 2 years ago, no problem, but they've had, decline, and now they don't understand how to use it. Suddenly they can use it again, and they can interact with family. And it's just it's a life-changing product. And I love that because it feels like that's exactly what we should be doing. And, if somebody with literally Alzheimer's or dementia can use that device because it's that intuitive, that is where tech really works.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are speaking my language about getting that continuous consumer feedback. I mean, I personally genuinely do believe that you can't be successful unless you are getting feedback from people who will end up using it. And in this case, you've got two users. You have the end user and you've got the caregiver who has a lot of control over what's going on and decision-making abilities. And you need to hear from both people. You need to understand how that end user is using it. And, you said Raz Mobility made some pretty significant changes. I think there are times in the age tech space, and I'll pick on age tech for just a minute because I am passionate about the opportunity there with it. And I think that people need to step away from their own personal experience and their reason why they started it. And they need to open themselves up to saying, look, I know how to make a widget that can do this. How does that sound to other people? And what are their objections to it? And why would they try it or not? And then when they do try it, what's the feedback? Are they using it in the way that I would have anticipated, that I intended for them to use it? How are they, are there unmet needs that they are using it for that I didn't even think about? And then is it working the way that it should from their perspective? Or is it that I know how it should work and I know how to make it work and therefore it's good, but when you hand it over to someone else, there's something just not intuitive about it.
Right.
There needs to be a lot more of that done.
I think you're right. I think founder, it's a founder dilemma kind of concept, right? Like I built it this way. It took off, it went well, or I got good feedback. But where do you innovate and where do you not? I mean, we talk about that a lot in should we or shouldn't we evolve product? Sometimes simple is the right answer, and there's all these other things. I could integrate product with, other sensors, and then those two things come together. But to do that, now I'm adding new technology into the product. Now that might change the expense, or it might make it so it's less, the privacy might now be a question, or there might be a concern around battery life or any of those other things where it's like it's not naturally obvious where you should innovate products. Sometimes simple is the answer. And I think we get stuck sometimes with things that are just over complicated or over engineered because someone thought that could be cool.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that is really unique about Raz Mobility is that it's so direct and simple. Really.
Yeah.
Let's shift for a moment back to retailers. And I'll just ask you a couple more questions. because I have to cut myself off or else I would keep you here all day. But thinking about retailers as brands. So Walmart is a brand, Best Buy is a brand. If they were really building out and creating a section around human need, let's say they've got the sleep section, what does that do for them as a retailer with brand identity?
Yeah.
How would you see that impacting?
I think the job of the retailer is to expose consumers to something they hadn't thought of, to solve a problem that either they might not have realized there were solutions for, or even thought that they had. So for the sleep tech, concept, it's like, hey, it's a little bit like hearing aids. Like, I don't have severe hearing loss, so there's nothing for me. Like for sleep tech, it's like, if you have sleep apnea or a medical condition, you're likely going to get that checked, and you're going to likely get prescription for a CPAP machine. And, that's going to be something that's like medically necessary. What's really interesting right now is that technology is going to the point where you don't have to have a medical diagnosis. And in fact, many of us don't seek the medical diagnosis, but whether or not you're getting good sleep. You wake up in the morning and it's almost immediately you're like, oh, I had a terrible night's sleep. Or, or it was a great night's sleep. And, you have a reaction to it. It's like, how do you get that more consistently? If someone told me I could just do something minor, buy a couple of products, improve my bedroom environment, and have more consistent sleep all day, every day, that's worth to me a lot of money. And these products aren't that expensive. So like, wow, I didn't even know that was available to me. Now you're telling me I can more consistently have great sleep. That changes everything for me. Your ability to concentrate, literally your health. And so presenting it that way, and not, again, presenting it where I have to go find these things, I have to go, discover them, but rather tell me the story. National Sleep Foundation says the bedroom environment, almost, X% of your sleep can be solved by having a perfect bedroom environment. We're curating these options for you. Go make your perfect bedroom environment. Wow, love it. So instead of me like coming in to buy an eye mask, I might end up with 5 or 6 other products that now I understand what I need to do, and I can feel so much better about how I'm managing my own sleep.
Absolutely. And from that consumer perspective, getting excited about going to a store because you know that they're going to have things that you can explore. You're going to learn something new. It's, there's something energizing about that versus the way you think of stores today. In most stores, people are choosing either, the main 2 drivers are because of price. They know what the price is going to be. It's a low price, or it's convenient. And that's why they're going. So when you can inject some emotion into it, and that learning, that exploration does create excitement.
Well, I think, the great retailers have all done that. Maybe not consistently, or haven't, maybe not right now, but like I would say, like a Target, when I go to Target, I might go up and down every aisle because I'm just like, hey, I don't know what's here. But I'm probably going to buy it. And so like, I'm going to go find things that I didn't know existed before, but I love this home area. And, I'm not here to buy a flower pot, but I'm probably walking out with one because I saw something that looked really nice. That I think is a genius move on Target's part. Whereas like Best Buy, very much around, the tech support, someone who can talk to me, explain it to me. I can understand it easily. I don't have to feel foolish because I don't really understand what why I want this type of television versus this type of computer. That really is what they stood for, is the ability to be the place you want to buy technology because you're going to get the answers you want. And you're going to get the after sale support. Each one of them has to have, in my mind, if you want to compete against a marketplace, you have to continue to have those pillars. I look at, retail doesn't have to just be mass retail. I mean, again, my background is wireless. There's tens and thousands of wireless stores, whether they're for prepaid or postpaid. And Verizon stores, AT&T, T-Mobile, those stores typically set an A+ retail, like fantastic locations inside of these towns, right? And they are filled with, interesting technology and some of the best, most educated technical people available that can sell and explain. When I worked for Sprint, our salespeople would often go through 2 to 3 weeks of training before they could even work behind a counter. That's how in-depth the training was. And, it was equally about how to explain technology as it was how to actually implement the technology. So now you have these doors where wireless is getting less complicated to buy and sell. Sometimes you might just when I bought my latest iPhone, I just had it delivered to me and I turned it on and I activated it and I didn't talk to anybody, right? Tech is getting easier, but those locations are still there and those fantastic salespeople are still there. So I always think, what could they be? What new categories could they help, usher in maybe better than anybody, because they're, super smart people who understand how to talk to the people. They're willing to spend an hour with you to have a conversation. What if they became, hey, if you want to outfit your home as an age tech home, this is the location you come to, and we will be here. We're down the street from you. We can install it for you. We can be, extended warranty products. We can finance it. We can do all the things because we do it for phones today. It could be a tremendous opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're seeing maybe the beginning stages of some retailers picking up on that. There's Best Buy Health, and Best Buy also has, from my knowledge, it's more of a fledgling division, but it is looking into age tech and finding the support for that and going in home and helping with installation. That's a big, big deal. And I think you're right at the very beginning of that.
Well, it's picking what they're great at. They're picking weak spot solutions, the ability to explain and understand. They've been doing that for years, unrelated to age or health, right?
Yeah.
Doing it for years. So it's like, hey, this category makes sense. We have the capability to do it. They have a product called Lively, which is a senior-based, product with a phone and service. But what I love about that product is it has a concierge button. Each of the products have a single button that you can press, and it takes you to an operator. And that operator has your information on screen. And they've gone through extensive training where they've actually empathetic training, where they actually have to wear gloves so they get the feeling of, I can't double click on something, or they have to wear certain glasses that mimic macular degeneration. So when they're explaining to the customer, hey, can you double click on that? And they're like, I'm trying to. They understand what's happening, and they can say, well, let me explain to you how to do that. And they also aren't metriced on getting the customer off the phone quickly. So you need to talk to that customer for 30 minutes. You talk to that customer for 30 minutes. That's what's critical. And I love that they built it. It's custom built for the customer. And then the other thing that they attach to is, if you're calling, they can say, oh, hi, Sally. I see your profile. How can I help you? Well, I need a ride to the doctor's office. Well, I can call a Lyft for you. And I can tell you who's going to come to the door. And I can tell you what the car looks like. And I can explain it to you. So they're actually essentially your personal concierge who's setting you up, making a doctor's appointment, or setting you up with a nurse, or getting you a Lyft ride. You don't have to call all those individual places. If you're uncomfortable, you just call your concierge. That to me is just a beautiful, elegant solution of bringing tech for a need. And it helps the caregiver, right? Because they don't have to worry about, no, mom, I called the Lyft. What do you mean? What is a Lyft? They're comfortable. They believe, they trust that concierge button because they use it all the time. And the concierge is not going to be like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. Get off the phone. I got to, I'm getting met to this. In fact, it's really about their service. So to me, that's where Best Buy is that's a genius move. And I think those are the kinds of things that need to be thought of. You have to optimize, but guess what? Those customers stay for a really long time.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit to them for that spend? Because that's an expensive service. The customers don't churn.
Yeah.
That's where that's what we have to be thinking about.
Yeah. That is, I think we could end our discussion today there. I do, because that is such a good example of how a retailer can be known for something that is, it's a growing need. It is a human need. It's a growing need. And the example that you just gave, and there are several others like that, but I love that example of Lively because it helps the caregiver. It helps the older adult. You're really, you've got double touch points going out there, and you can help with so many different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't feel like someone is promising something they're not delivering.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Sally, thank you so much. I always learn a lot from talking to you. And I did today, and it's a lot of fun too. So
yes, thank you so much for bringing me on, and excited to listen to all. I know I understand all your sessions are going really well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Sally. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.